My mother kept it in a biscuit tin. That is the detail I always reach for when I try to explain it to people, and it is the detail that makes them smile, just slightly. The way you smile at something a little sad and a little absurd. A biscuit tin. The blue kind, with the faded tartan pattern, and the lid that requires 2 hands and patience to open. She brought it from Lagos to London in 1973, packed in the middle of a suitcase full of cloth, and she kept it on the high shelf in every home she ever had, and she never once offered to explain it, and none of us ever quite worked up the courage to ask. The academics asked, 3 of them, over the years, when word got out through some university archaeology department that our family had an unusual item of unclear provenance. My mother let them photograph it. She would not let them remove it. The oldest one, a man from Edinburgh with a white beard and honest eyes, told her gently that the text was unclassifiable, that he had shown photographs to 6 colleagues across 3 continents, and none of them had seen anything like it, and that the binding material predated any known technique of bookmaking by what he could only estimate as several thousand years. He said it with the careful, apologetic tone of a man delivering a difficult diagnosis. My mother thanked him, put the Codex back in the biscuit tin, put the tin back on the high shelf, and offered him a cup of tea. She never talked about it. Not to me. Not to my sister Gloria, who asked directly, twice, in her teenage years, and received the same short, mild answer both times. It belonged to her mother, and her mother's mother before that, and it was to be kept safe, and kept together with the family, and that was all she needed to know. Gloria pressed her on it once, the last time, I think, about 15 years ago, and my mother said, with a quiet that was not unkind, "It is not for everyone. It will know when." I thought about that in the car on the way to the funeral. I thought about it again, 3 days later, standing in the attic of her house in Handsworth, while the October light came through the gable window in long flat bars and turned the dust in the air to something almost ceremonial. I was alone. My sister had gone to collect the children from school. I was supposed to be putting boxes into piles, things to keep, things to give away, things to set out for whoever came to clear the rest. I was doing that. Then I climbed the attic stairs and stopped doing it. I found the biscuit tin on the 3rd shelf of the low bookcase under the eaves. The shelf held other things, her Bible, a collection of Chinua Achebe, 3 nursing textbooks from her own training in the 70s. The tin sat between the Achebe and the nursing books, where it had sat, as far as I can remember, for my entire life. The tartan was even more faded than I remembered. The lid required 2 hands and patience, as always. I was a field medic for 11 years before I transitioned to ward nursing. I have opened chests, I have applied pressure to wounds that should not have been survivable, and held the pressure and counted. I know what it means to make a decision with your hands, while the rest of you is very quiet inside, the way you go quiet when the stakes are so absolute that there is no room left for noise. I mention this because I think it explains what I did next. I did not open the Codex carefully. I did not study the cover or photograph it or lay it down on a flat surface. I sat on the attic floor with my back against the bookcase, and I opened it, the way you open something you have been handed in an emergency. Fast, flat, both palms pressing the pages down to hold them still. The script was there, exactly as in the photographs I had seen in the academic's report. Dense, fine, without spaces between words, running right to left, or left to right, or perhaps neither. It shifted, depending on which angle you approached it. There were diagrams of a kind. There were what might have been numbers. I could not read any of it. I sat with it open in my lap and listened to the October afternoon and thought about my mother, who had carried this thing from Lagos to London in a suitcase full of cloth and never once explained it. And I pressed my palms flat against the open pages because it was the only thing I knew to do. The script moved, not dramatically. Not like something from a film. The way it moved was almost polite, a slow rearrangement, the way iron filings move toward a magnet, not rushing, not startling, just settling toward my hands. The text gathered under my palms like it was trying to read me. I had been holding the Codex open for, I think, 6 or 7 minutes. I heard the mug before I saw it, a ceramic sound, a small impact on the wooden floor of the attic, and I looked up to see it rolling. I had knocked it from the shelf when I came in. I hadn't registered it, but I must have knocked it. because it had been rolling on the floor the entire time I had been sitting here. It rolled in a slow arc, the way knocked mugs roll, heading for the leg of the bookcase. It stopped. It did not hit the bookcase leg and stop. It stopped before that. It simply ceased rolling, and then it moved in reverse, with the same unhurried pace, and it went back to where it had started, and it righted itself, and it sat on the shelf again. I looked at my hands, still flat against the pages. Then my mother's voice filled the attic. Not from a phone, not from a speaker, from the air itself, from the space between the shelves and the low ceiling and the October light. And it was her voice, from 3 years ago, the voicemail I had saved for 2 years before I deleted it, because the keeping of it had become more painful than the losing of it. She had called to ask whether I was coming for Easter. That was all. Her voice, asking whether I was coming for Easter, relaxed and ordinary, slightly impatient, the way she always was when leaving voicemails, as if the machine itself were a minor inconvenience she was tolerating on my behalf. I listened to the whole message. When it finished, the attic was very quiet. I did not cry. I am telling you this, not as a point of pride, but as a factual record. I did not cry. I sat with my hands flat on a Codex that was thousands of years old and had just played back a deleted voicemail from a woman who had been dead for 6 days, and I did not cry because the part of me that cries was not the part that was present. The part that was present was the same part that goes quiet when the stakes are absolute. The part that has learned, over many years and in many rooms, that some things require your stillness more than they require your grief. I turned to the last page. It had been blank in every photograph in the academic's report, blank in whatever examinations had been done before our family's time, according to the notes my mother had kept in a folder behind the tin, which I had not known existed until this afternoon. Every scholar who had ever held this codex had noted a final blank page, pristine, unmarked, as if reserved. It was not blank now. The script had gathered itself from the previous pages, condensed, migrated, arranged itself into a single short line across the center of the final page. Not in the unclassifiable script, not in the dense, directionless text that had defeated 3 continents of linguists. In English. Plain, clean, exact. Every erasure was yours to make. I read it 4 times. I read it until the light through the gable window shifted, and the dust in the air rearranged into something less ceremonial, and the attic became simply an attic again. Low ceiling, cardboard boxes, the smell of old paper, and my mother's last 30 years. It was not for everyone. It will know when. She had known. She had carried this thing for 50 years across an ocean, and through 5 house moves, and past the hands of 3 academics who could not understand it. And she had known what it was for, and she had known who it was for. And she had not told me, not because she was keeping it from me, I understand that now, but because the telling was never the point. The knowing was never something you could hand to another person. It had to land in the hands that were ready for it, hands that had spent decades learning what it costs to choose what gets to continue and what does not. I closed the codex. I put it back in the biscuit tin. I put the tin in my bag, not on any shelf, because I understood now that the keeping safe part was over, and the other part had begun. I do not know yet what I am to erase. I know that I will know. I know the weight of that knowing. I have known it before, in other rooms, over other thresholds, and I know that whatever it asks of these hands will not hesitate. They never have.